Just look at this side view. It doesn't look at all like the Model X that went into production. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna have a look at the Tesla Model X, and today I'm wearing my blue sketch hat, which you can get down below in the description. So the thing with Model X is, if you look at what the competitors and other brands are doing with their SUVs, specifically now the past, say, 5 years or so, is, let's take Mercedes for example. You have the GLE, the GLC, and the GLB as well, and then you have the coupe versions of those SUVs. Maybe not the GLB, I'm not sure about that one. And then you have Audi as well with, for example, you have the Q4, you have the Q5, and you have the coupe versions out of those as well, called the Sportbacks. And BMW as well, they don't have like X5 Sportback. Instead, they have the X5, and then they have the X6, which is the coupe version of the X5, and you have the X3, and then you have the coupe version of the X3, which is the X4. But if we look at Tesla, they basically only have the coupe versions of the SUVs. You have the Model Y, and you have the Model X. But if we have a look, this is where it becomes really interesting, looking back at the design development of the Model X here. This is one of the early sketches that we can see right here. And what's interesting here, which I'm going to show you more clearly in just a second here when we look at the side view, but we can see that there is a little bit of a bubble here. There's a little bit of a bump that is more pronounced than it turned out to be in the production version. And on top of that, we have a lot more aggressive rear end here with this outlet here, for example. This didn't make it into production, but I think it looks really cool. But the thing with these sketches here is you always want to over-exaggerate the proportions and the functions of the car that you're sketching, to kind of sell the idea better. So the wheels are always going to be a lot bigger in a sketch than they are in production, obviously. And also the proportions are also going to be a little more extreme. But just look at this side view. It doesn't look at all like the Model X that went into production. This is a weird looking car. This is even weirder than the Model X production, because we have this long roofline right here. Look at how smooth this is, and then it just creates this weird hump here, or whatever you want to call that. But it's not a very harmonious design or a harmonious flow in the lines, and you can't really have that if you want to create a beautiful car. You can't have a dip like this. So we could turn this into, let's just try and see what happens if we turn this into proper just Model X, but just liquefying some of this. So create something like this very quickly. And you can see that we're starting to get the proportions and the lines now that we have of the actual product Model X, even though the Model X sits a lot higher than this, so it goes up like this. But it's really cool to see these early design sketches from the development phase, and see what their thoughts was when they're creating this car here, the Model X, and why they decided to go with a coupe shape. It looks pretty good, because I think the thing with the Model Y and the Model X is we only have those as references. We don't have a regular rear end, like a wagon rear end of the Model X and the Model Y, and that's what I want to change today. I want to create a regular non-coupe version of the Model X and see what that could turn out like. I think it would make sense, because it would make for a lot more practical car if you have more space in the rear. And this is also another sketch that I want to show you. You see the hump here, same kind of hump that we have in the previous sketch. It looks a little off. It looks like they don't know how to solve this problem. It looks like they want a coupe style car, but they also need to think about the occupant headroom back here and the overall functionality of the car. And this is just a front view I want to show you with the early sketch, which has this Model S, very early 2012 Model S style front end to it. And this also, of course, didn't went into production. But let's have a look at the actual physical prototype of the Model X, which is up here, and down here you have the production version. If we look at the rear view, not much changed here. You can see that the proportions, everything is pretty much the same. What did change is this little diffuser down here. As you can see down here, it's different from what it is on the prototype. You have a little V here, for example. Details like that. But the big change here from the sketches is that you can see now we have a clear, clean curvature going right here, and we don't have this bump that they created in the sketches. So they decided to go with the all-out coupe shape of the Model X here, and this is specifically or more easily shown here in the side view. It looks pretty decent here when they just decided to delete that weird bump. So we have a clean line, which you can do with a quick stroke of your hand. You create the roof line of the Model X, and this is also reflected, of course, in the production car. But the big change from the prototype to the production car actually happened in the front end, where when they were producing the prototype for the Model X, they had the first generation of the Model S in production. So of course they want to take some inspiration from that and the graphics specifically to kind of tie it together and create some brand identity. And they took the front end here from the current, or at the time, the Model S that had this sort of fake grille in the front. I'm really glad that they skipped this and tightened everything up with this front end right here. This looks so much better than the prototype front end, in my opinion. It looks a lot cleaner. There's just too much details going on here in the front end of the prototype. We have a chrome trim piece right here, we have this thing right here, and we have all these pieces down here. It's just messy, and this basically just cleaned everything up. What I would love to change on the Model X, just a detail, I wanted to remove these two fins here and make it even less cluttered, if you want, if you will, in the front end. Sometimes I like to just sketch out the car that I'm going to redesign on with pen and paper when the proportions are a little bit unique, which they are specifically for the Tesla Model X and pretty much every Tesla and EV in general. The proportions are not the same as they are with an internal combustion engine. Since you have more space for the cabin, that means that we can stretch out the A-pillar further and almost have it be like a mid-engine car or something like that, where we don't have the same amount of the same length of the hood from the A-pillar moving forward. We have a smaller hood in the front, which creates a longer looking greenhouse and almost this bubbly feel that a lot of Teslas are known for having, and it's almost like a brand identity for Tesla to have this little bit of a bubble feel to the design, specifically looking at it from a side view. If you're interested in learning how to sketch cars and products like this in side view and perspective, check out my online course down in the description. Let's start the redesign here, and let's try to make this into more like a wagon design in the rear end. So I want to take this design right here and then turn it into something that looks like this. So we have more of a traditional SUV shape to this design. I think it could actually work. We just need to figure out how to deal with this, the spoiler there, and also maybe change the taillights. Not sure if I'm gonna do that. Let's have some fun and let's see how this goes. So as we go along here, some of the challenges that I had when I was redesigning this is, do I want to add some very modern features to the rear end? For example, do I want to create one of these light bars that stretches from one taillight to the other, which pretty much 80-85% of all new cars today decided to just add to their design and to the entire lineup of brands? Or do I just want to keep the old regular X-style taillights? I decided to make it a little more interesting, to just add a light bar that stretches between the taillights. And on top of that, the spoiler that looks very good when you have a coupe shape, that can't really be the same kind of shape if we're going to turn this into a more wagon-like shape, because it's going to clash with the rest of the design that's above it. So I want to kind of flatten that curvature of the ducktail and make it more straight, more horizontal, so it has almost a mirrored line of what the top end line, because that's where you can have some curvature on the very top of this design and the spoiler up top. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You have to figure out the cut lines for the wheels. Another thing that I was experimenting with is how do we solve the C-pillar and the design of that, the cut line in the window. Do we want to have it smooth and curvy, or do we want to create some sort of sharp corners, maybe 3 or 4, and where do these corners then end, or where do we position these corners? Do we have more in the bottom, or more angle in the bottom than at the top, or do we have a 90 degrees and almost in the middle we create that one corner, or how do we do that? So that was another thing that I wanted to experiment with and have some fun with, and I ended up with this design right here. And I think, if you think about it, it would be cool to see Tesla do something like this. The Model X and the Model Y, they are some of the few SUV coupes that I really think look pretty good. If you watched the channel before, you know I'm not a fan of for example, the GLE coupe is one of the worst looking transitions from a beautiful SUV, and then they turn it and just cut the roof off and have that sloping rear end, and the proportion just goes to whatever, and it's not a good looking car anymore. But at the same time, the SUV is a beautiful one. When they turn it into coupe, everything is ruined and it becomes a horrible looking car. But with the Model X here, I think it actually works in both ways. As I said, we're only used to seeing the Model X as a coupe, so having it like this, it kind of looks cool, and I think it would add a lot of space to the design, and also maybe help the engineer fit everything they need to fit inside of this car more easily when you have more space to play around with. And in my personal opinion, I just like these designs better. I don't think there are, well, there are a few cars. For example, the Porsche Cayenne coupe looks pretty good as a coupe, because we're so used to seeing Porsches and the graphics and the style as coupes ever since the 60s, the 911 throughout the decades and the years. So turning that into a coupe SUV, it kind of works for Porsche, because if it's in their DNA to have those kind of lines on the roofline, but it's not in the DNA of, for example, Audi, Mercedes, and BMW X6 also, and the X4. I don't understand those cars, but I get that they are selling and people are buying it, so that's all that matters for the manufacturers to keep making those and designing those. But overall, it was a fun redesign here. I might do something similar with the Model Y to just have some fun and see what it could turn out to look like. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you want to see in the future on the channel, what redesigns you would like me to do in the future on the channel. Thanks again. I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.